And so today we have our Project DFEND members. There are 7 of us, and we have expertise ranging from diet and nutrition to food and food safety and physical activity and exercise. We'll be presenting some background slides on fad diets in a few seconds, and they'll be posted later or probably early next week on our Project DFEND website, and Sarah posted those in the chat box. So we'll just go ahead and get started. If you want to ask questions, or if you have topics or things you're curious about, just put them in the chat and we'll take note. So Angela, do you want to share the slides? Oops. Okay, so today we're talking about fad diets. So the next slide, Angela. Oh, maybe I didn't introduce myself. Sorry, I'm Jamie Baum, and I'm an associate professor in the food science department, and I direct the Center for Human Nutrition. So why are fad diets so popular? Well, we do have an issue with overweight and obesity in the United States. So in 2015 to 16, so this is a little outdated, almost 40% of the Americans, and that's around 93 million people, were obese. But right now we know that 70% of Americans and our Kansans are either overweight or obese. So this means they have a BMI of 25 or higher. So we know, like, obesity-related conditions include heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and certain types of cancer. And if you look at the Arkansas Department of Health's website, you'll see that in the top 10 causes of death within our state, half of them are obesity or nutrition related. And this cost, and this was 12 years ago a number, but the cost of treating obesity in the United States was $147 billion. And that number is probably higher today. Okay, Angela. So, what makes fad diets so popular in the weight loss? Things to know about, oh, there's a typo, about the weight loss industry. So this is in 2018, the US weight loss market grew from 4%, is estimated at 4%, and it went from 69.8 billion to 72.7 billion. And I think by 2021, it's supposed to get closer to $100 billion a year. And millennials are representing the future generation of dieters, and they'll surpass baby boomers. And commercial chains have a strong increase in revenue, is almost 20% in 2018. And meal replacements like shakes, nutrition bars, those are also still really popular. But prescription obesity drugs, I mean, even though they make $655 million a year, that market stays relatively flat. There's not a lot of growth. And weight loss surgeries keep increasing. So in 2018, it was a $6 billion a year market. And we see a lot of them in Fayetteville. There's a lot of medical weight loss franchises, but those have tended to slow in growth. And I know a few I used to drive by all the time closed sometime last year. And there's a trend for dieters to want clean eating. So they want to eliminate preservatives, GMOs, artificial flavors, and sweeteners. They want to see, a small ingredient label. And diet soft drink sales and artificial sweetener sales continue to decline. So these are all the trends that are happening in the weight loss industry. But weight loss and obesity, they're just not a one cause and effect or one size fits all solution. So we know the reason we gain weight or become overweight or obese. Not only do we eat more calories, but especially women, there's a lot of difficulty losing weight after childbirth. And I think the older you have your children, this becomes more difficult. Our environment makes it hard for us to lose weight. We have usually demanding work schedules that don't leave a lot of time for that hour of physical activity you're supposed to get every day. Tight budgets make it hard, so it's easy to access cheaper, high-calorie processed foods. And sometimes a lot of gym memberships can be expensive. There's a lot of emotional or psychological factors that drive eating. So, I mean, I know myself, I'm a stressed, depressed, happy eater, so it doesn't matter what it is. If there's an emotion for it, I'll eat to celebrate it. Certain medical conditions and hormone disorders, lack of sleep can influence our weight gain. Just our family history in our genes, and certain medications. And one big important one is lack of exercise. And then, let me see, there was a comment. Yes, someone asked, did you hear it correctly? 70% of Americans are overweight or obese. Yeah, so this 30 to 40% number, so I think it's almost 30%, 36% of our Kansans are obese. So that means a BMI over 30. And another 30 to 40% of us are, yes, overweight. And I think we don't see it because we're used to seeing people that are overweight or obese. And so diets intend to help. So a fad diet is a diet that wants to help a person lose a large amount of weight in a very short period of time. So it's a fad diet if they promise quick weight loss, usually through unhealthy ways. They focus on one or two food groups and removing the other food groups. There's not a lot of scientific research to support it. It tends to be diets that are meant to be followed for a short period of time. They tend to be really low in calories. They claim you don't need to exercise and have a very strict menu. And we'll post these slides on our page so you'll be able to access these links. But this was a nice podcast with a dietitian that talked about fad diets. And then, I don't know, Angela, if you can get this link to work, we can just slowly or quickly scroll through it. This is from the American Nutrition and Dietetics Association for registered dietitians, and they have this great timeline. Maybe it's not going to work, and the eye might take you there as well. Angela, if you click on the eye, like within the slide, I think you have to put it in slideshow. If it doesn't work, I encourage you to go back. We won't spend much time trying to get there and look for it, because they track fad diets all the way from the 1800s. And you'll see there's over 100 years this trend for reducing carbohydrates. But for a while, smoking was prescribed as a diet. There's some crazy ones in there. So it's kind of humorous to scroll through and see what trends stay and what some of the crazy trends were. Okay, what's the next? So these are slides I use when I teach a class on fad diets. So these are just some of the many, many, many examples out there. And we won't talk about all of them because normally I design this class to be like an hour long, and maybe one day with extension I can give the full lecture. But some of my favorites include, the cotton ball diet. So this one just recommends you swallow some cotton balls and they'll swell up in your stomach and prevent you from eating, but they'll probably also make you really sick. The baby food diet was that was popular, I think, in the 90s, because with Friends, it was People magazine was always reporting that Jennifer Aniston was so skinny because she ate baby food. The tapeworm diet, that makes it on that dietetics timeline where you just basically swallow a tapeworm and it will make you skinny. And there's all kinds of other diets. Some of you may have seen them, but it's not definitely all encompassing. So next one, Angela. So I'm going to highlight a couple of the diets we've been asked about over the last few weeks. And there's a really nice fast fact and meal plan related to the paleo diet on the website today. So the principle behind the paleo diet, and Angela put that link for the fad diet timeline in the chat. Basically, it's based on the foods our ancient ancestors may have eaten, like meat, nuts, seeds, and berries. But I will say we have some, what are they called? Anthropologists here on campus. And one guy is really, really famous. He's always in National Geographic, and he actually studies teeth from early humans, and they can take images and take samples from teeth. But they actually found our early ancestors ate carbs. So just so you know, they did have carbohydrates that they used to not think, like grains and things, in their diet. So during the Paleolithic era, so that was around $2.5 million years, I mean, it ended around 10,000 years ago with the advent of agriculture and domestication of animals. So then the theory is that during this time, we evolved nutrition needs specific to the foods that we had available. And that since this era lasted 2.5 million years, and we've only been evolved for domestication of animals and agriculture for 10,000 years, that our nutritional needs wouldn't have had time to evolve that quickly. So we must need what our Paleolithic ancestors ate. And they claim that we're not, as modern humans, we're not able to adapt fast enough to handle many of the processed foods that have become available since agriculture was invented, and that this is what's leading to obesity. And so the fact sheet does a way better job than this slide, but basically it focuses more on lean proteins and meats, because they said it was more, you know, like a hunter and gatherer. So meat was a big part of their diet. Less carbohydrates, so no non-starchy veggies and fresh fruit, and high fiber, not from grains, but fruits and vegetables. So in the paleo, following a true paleo diet, you know, you eliminate dairy products, grains, legumes, which are like beans, processed oils, refined sugar, salt, coffee, and alcohol. But one thing that kind of makes me laugh about the paleo diet is if you go into like Whole Foods or like up here, Ozark Natural Foods, which is our local co-op, or Walmart even now, and look in the frozen section, they have processed meals that are paleo. So to me, it kind of is like counterintuitive because they say you shouldn't eat processed food, but now they have a whole array of processed foods that meet paleo guidelines. Okay, and the next. And then Atkins diet. So this is one that just was invented in 1972 by Dr. Atkins, and it keeps becoming updated and updated. They have a whole foundation focused on the Atkins diet, and I think now it's owned by a bunch of venture capitalists. But this involves limiting consumption of carbs to switch your body's metabolism from using glucose as an energy source for your calories, and focus on targeting your stored body fat. So this is similar principles to the ketogenic diet. It puts your body into ketosis to lose weight. So you're just switching from a sugar fuel source to a fat fuel source. And so if you take the time, if you find a diet or that's interesting to you, I encourage everyone to read the book from start to finish. And like this whole second shelf behind me is chock full of books related to fad diets, because they almost always have some sort of phase system. So the difference between Atkins diet and keto diet is after a certain time and low carbs, you go back to eating sort of a healthy diet with all foods. But you start with phase one, eating less than 20 grams of carbs per day for 2 weeks. So it's only 2 weeks. This is really in like the South Beach diet for people who remember that, the Zone diet, the Dukin diet, which is really popular. It's basically like the Atkins diet of Europe. All of them have these sort of induction type phase where you eliminate carbs to get quick weight loss, to get you excited, to get you motivated, and sort of jumpstart your weight loss journey. But keep in mind, this is only like 2 to 4 weeks. So this isn't a lifetime elimination of carbs. And then in phase two, you slowly add more nuts, low carb veggies, and a small amount of fruit. Phase three is when you're close to your goal weight and you add back more carbs like whole grains to your diet until your weight loss slows down. And then phase four for all these diets is really about maintaining your body weight. So you can eat, the carbs again, you can eat fruit because you've like slowly started adding them back to your diet. So it's never meant, most of these diets, with the exception of the true ketogenic diet, are not meant to be lifelong no carb diets. But in reading the book usually helps. They explain why. Okay, Angela. And so next is the keto diet, and Sam Walker, who's on the team, made a really nice fact sheet about this as well as a meal plan. And basically the purpose of the ketogenic diet is to induce this ketogenic state, so where you focus on metabolizing body fat into glucose rather than glucose itself. So you're trying to force fat burn, and Sam explains it well in his fact sheet. It's really about, it was originally developed for people with epilepsy. So doctors found that eliminating carbs really helped reduce the amount of epileptic seizures, or long-term fasting helped reduce that. In long-term fasting generated a ketogenic state, but it's not safe for children with seizures. So they mimicked the ketogenic state by developing this diet. So it wasn't really normally intended for weight loss. So if you want to eat a ketogenic diet, you need to keep carbs under 50 grams a day or less. And I think in Sam's fact sheet, it's even lower. So this is just an example of some of the foods and how many grams of carbs they have. Okay. And then I picked this one because I think it's funny, and I actually have a friend that follows it. It's called the Werewolf Diet. It's also like the lunar diet because it goes with the phases of the moon. And the claim is that it may help you lose 2 to 6 pounds in one single day, and offers no sort of dietary restrictions except that you need to follow the phase of the moon. So the only real rule is that when there's going to be a full moon and in the entrance of new moon phases, you only drink water or have a juice fast. And then you're guaranteed to lose like 3 to 4 pounds, mostly because you're not eating for the entire day. So their theory is that with the werewolf diet or the lunar diet, the moon has the same effect on your body that it does on water and oceans and tides. So by fasting according to the phases of the moon, your body may respond even more powerfully than it would normal by flushing excess water and toxins from your body. What do they recommend during the lunar eclipse? So I have no idea. Maybe you just don't even get to drink juice, but there is no science behind this one. But amongst my Wiccan friends, it is quite popular. I will say, though, I've known them now for 4 or 5 years, and they all weigh the same. So if weight loss is their goal, it's not working. So next slide. So how do you know if a diet is a fad? Well, we actually have a fact sheet published on this, and if you look and find through the American Society for Nutrition, Sam Walker, Angela Tacinelli, and Aubrey Holly, who are on the DFEND team, won an award for their informational video about this topic, and Angela will present more on it in a second. But does it ask you to eliminate one or several food groups? Does it promise really quick results, like 5 or more, that should say pounds of weight loss in a week? Are there personal testimonies like as proof of effectiveness? And I was telling the DFEND team when we had our call on Monday, like my best friend since the 4th grade is the queen of like weight loss pyramid schemes. And I was saying like, I always buy something to help support her family's trip to Disney World or something, but Beachbody, you may see a lot of that. For a few years, it was always about Beachbody. This is an example of one of these companies that uses personal testimonies for proof of effectiveness without a lot of research. And they sell this like $150 bag of miracle smoothie powder. But really, if you're just like, if you drink it, it's kind of like Slim Fast. You're consuming so few calories, you're going to lose weight. Does it recommend supplements or pills? Is it written or advertised by a celebrity? Is there any science evidence? So like I even go through this when people ask me about, the miracles of coconut oil and things. If you go to the coconut oil website, they don't actually have any scientific articles on the health benefits of coconut oil. It links you to completely different things. So always scroll down at the bottom of any website. It should give you a list of scientific references if there has been science on the diet. Is exercise minimized? So more and more research has actually come out over the last couple years showing that it's exercise and physical activity that is equally important, if not more important, for weight loss and long-term health. Did the diet gain popularity quickly and fade away? Does it provide a list of foods that can be eaten and others that must be eliminated? Is the research sponsored by the company publishing the diet? And does it sound too good to be true? Then those are some red flags. And then the next slide. So if you think that you're being scammed, you can report fraudulent weight loss product claims to the Federal Trade Commission. And these are the 2 links for that. And I think this is important because if you're shopping at GNC or in the supplement aisle, supplements are not regulated by the FDA. So they can pretty much put anything they want on front of pack, and they don't have to guarantee that that substance is inside your supplement or weight loss aid. If it's sold in the food aisle, then it has to go through different regulations. So bottom line, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And this link here takes you back to the Dietetics Association website that has a really great summary about fat diets. And then I think Angela's going to present a few slides, and then we'll open it to questions.
Yeah, so we're just going to conclude with kind of the concept of like fact versus fiction with regards to like recognizing reliable nutrition information. And I'm going to go through 3 brief points, very surface level, but I encourage you to check out our website because I did post a fast fact sheet that includes all of these tips and a few more in much more extensive detail. And so the first tip we'll start with is just be smart about your internet search. And what I mean by that is first and foremost, read beyond the title, especially on our news outlets and social media sites. The title is always meant to sell you and try to grab your attention, but usually it's not the full story. So don't just be sold on the title. Avoid blogs or tabloid websites and try to use instead like some scholarly search engines such as Google Scholar or PubMed. I'll also introduce some other resources in a few slides or two. But essentially the summary of it is don't go to those magazines, blog sites, our news outlets that may be biased. Facebook and Instagram aren't really your primary sources that you're going to want to use for reliable, trustworthy information. But if you do decide to do a quick search in Google or whatever search engine you choose, there is a way to always validate the information. So if it is truly an article that's presenting like scientific information or anything like that, you can always scroll down typically to the bottom of the article, and under a footnotes or references or resource section, you'll be able to see where they pulled their information from. And if you want to dig a little deeper into making sure they're either presenting it right or presenting true facts or get your own opinion, you'll be able to be linked or find those resources there. The second tip is to use credible research-based websites. So again, that's not our social media or our news outlet websites. Instead, look for websites that have been scientifically or governmentally reviewed. This includes websites that have domains such as .edu, .org, or .gov. I have a few of them listed there and additional ones included in the fast fact sheet posted to our website. And the great thing about these resources is, one, they're free. 2, they really help to cater to both the higher level like scientific community as well as your general public who have maybe less scientific verbiage. And then also they often offer like free webinars and things that you can also attend in a similar format to this type of DFEND call. And then lastly, only trust licensed professionals. And usually when a licensed professional has also written an article, they will list their credentials in it as the author. So that's also an indicator on websites and things that you can look for. In general, you want to be able to trust your medical doctors. They have the credentials of MD following their name. Clinical researchers who are doing nutritional research in the scientific or academic field, they have the credentials of PhD. And then registered dietitians with the credentials of RD. In general, you don't want to follow things or people that claim to be nutritionists, especially those that are self-taught, nutrition bloggers who do a lot of their own claims, and then health coaches who usually just give themselves that own like personalized title, but may not have the credentials or education to back that title in general. So just some final food for thought. The internet can be a great place to find your up-to-date or latest nutrition information and scientific findings, but it's really important to know where to look for those resources and what the best resources are, so that when you are looking at nutrition information, you can evaluate it as being accurate and reliable and provided to you by trusted nutrition experts. And again, there's much more details about each of these points and additional resources that you can use in the fast fact sheet posted to our website. And that's pretty much it. So at this time, I think we can open it up to questions.
One question is the current recommendation regarding artificial sweeteners. Are they acceptable for diabetics? So, I don't think there is a true dietary recommendation for artificial sweeteners. And if there's a dietitian on the call, feel free to correct me. I know a lot of the research that has been conducted on artificial sweeteners does not translate to humans. It's mostly been done in animal or rodent models. So I think if you are a diabetic with a sweet tooth, I think it is a viable option. But I think, you should talk to a dietitian or a medical doctor if you're really concerned about it. But as far as I know, the last time I wrote a white paper on this, which was like 8 or 9 years ago, the science just isn't there that they're bad for you. But I think it goes in that line with like processed foods. People don't like it. But if you do have a sweet tooth and you don't want the calories, I don't see anything wrong with occasionally using sweeteners. Scientifically, there's no evidence. I mean, I have a Diet Coke addiction, so I do drink one a day, but I know that is one can a day, but that has less sweetener in it than a packet that you would add to like your tea or coffee. Yes, and Debbie Baker wrote that any land-grant university extension service are reliable sites, and our UAX has some great resources out there. And we can turn any of our sort of fast facts into fact sheets if someone wants more, a more in-depth review of any of these topics. Because I know our extension services make sure they go through a peer-reviewed process before being posted.
And also something worth mentioning is like, along with our fad diet topic for this week, a lot of the team members did develop recipes that fit certain diets and specific fact sheets to focus on specific diets more in depth, such as the paleo diet, the flexitarian diet, Mediterranean diet. I think we also had Whole30 and paleo done, if I didn't say that already. And under our recipes tab, you can find recipes that will be specifically aligning with those various diets if you are interested in kind of following any of those.
And then I'll just respond, someone asked about Weight Watchers, and I would say Weight Watchers is not considered a fad diet. I would say it's actually one of the few weight loss programs out there that has a lot of science backing it. They spend hundreds of thousands of dollars every year funding independent researchers to evaluate not only their app, but how it works with families, with kids. And because they do target like a slower weight loss with Weight Watchers, around 1 to 2 pounds a week for long-term weight loss. And as someone who joined Weight Watchers when they were 9, and I'm now 43, over the years, you can see how Weight Watchers has changed. So it used to be like when I was 9 years old, if you ate a chicken breast, it was like half your points for the day. And then over time, as the data has come out by independent scientists showing, that it's actually your refined carbohydrates that are linked to heart disease and some of our metabolic disorders, and it's actually protein that's keeping you fuller longer. You've seen a whole shift in their mindset on how points and their algorithms on how points are assigned. So I will say, like, they do a pretty good job of sticking with the science. And then I know last year, or whenever Oprah took it over, they also added a whole component focused on well-being, health, sleep, and all these other aspects like lifestyle change that they know that we now know is important just to be healthy. And what was I going to say? And they also focus on exercise. So I think that's important because you'll see a lot of fad diets never address physical activity or exercise, and Weight Watchers does that. And then let's see. Oh, Casey, I'm not even going to answer that question. Optavia or MetaFast. So I would say, it's based on like lower carbs, higher protein. It is a pyramid scheme. It's kind of expensive. I mean, I know a few people that have been quite successful losing 50 or 60 pounds on it. But it's also that thing when you stop paying for the product and the service, people usually gain the weight back if you're not maintaining sort of that same nutrient distribution in your whole diet. And then eating frequently smaller portion meals versus 3 to 4 times with the same calories. I think there's something to be said about spacing your meals through the day. But again, to me, that's like an individual preference. Some people really do well with intermittent fasting and just eating during these 8 hours a day, whether it's like 20 little meals or 3 big meals. And some people do better by having, 6 small eating occasions throughout the day. And then Casey just wrote, for those of you affiliated with the U of A insurance, you can sign up for a Real Appeal for free. I think, but you can only have one family member per household sign up or per insurance policy. So like my husband could not join when I tried it out. And Casey Owens, she's in poultry science, is actually the one that told me about it. And if you sign up for a Real Appeal, it is free. You get a body weight scale, measuring cups, a My Plate, workout videos, workout bands. You make it a certain amount of time, you get like a free little like NutriBullet type smoothie machine. And it's pretty good. And because it addresses like all aspects of healthy lifestyle. So exercise, diet, sleep, well-being. What's the verdict? We'll come back to keto diet. And Sam wrote the fact sheet, and I know he does follow the keto diet, so he can answer that one in a second. But is intermittent fasting a legitimate weight loss strategy? I would say that yes, there's a lot of science coming out about intermittent fasting. It's getting there, but it is no different than reducing calories in your diet. So it's no different than like Real Appeal or increasing exercise. It's just, some people say it's just an easier way for calorie control because theoretically you don't track your food and you can eat whatever you want during that finite time period of when you're not fasting. And then how you're reducing calories is like you're just not eating during these certain times. So you're reducing your food intake. So when studies have compared like intermittent fasting where you're just maybe eating between like 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. or there's another version of fasting. So that's called time restricted feeding. There's another intermittent fasting where you eat whatever you want on one day and then the next day you only eat maybe 400 or 500 calories. But the reason they work is because they just cut calories. But when they compare them to just a regular calorie restricted diet with targeted weight loss, they don't have any difference. And after like 16 or 20 weeks of weight loss. But they have seen that people who do follow intermittent fasting stay on it longer because it's just easier to think about without all the tracking and planning. So I think, there's also a lot of data. One of my friends from grad school is at Arizona, and he's published a lot of data on the importance of tracking. So he published a study a few years ago where he just had trackers and non-trackers and didn't give them any instructions, just track what you eat for 16 weeks. And the people who tracked did lose 5 pounds compared to the people who didn't track because I think they just became aware of what they were eating every day. So Casey asked, what's most important, the type of calories or the total calories? Well, I do think total calories are important because you could eat 5,000 calories from protein or 5,000 calories from carbs and you're still going to lose or gain weight. But I would say it's the type of calories that you eat within those calories are important. So like to make sure you get all your nutrients like fruits and vegetables and things like that. And Sam, do you want to talk about the keto diet? Do you see the question on there? Sam on the call.
Hi, so there is some evidence to support ketogenic diet for those with type 2 diabetes and improving glycemic control. However, if that question was more along the lines of a type 1, you definitely need to work with your doctor and endocrinologist about that, just because you do run the risk of lower blood sugars, just because your body's switching from a ketogenic fuel source instead of carbohydrate. So I would definitely work with your doctor about that one.
And then Dr. Howie, who's on the phone, she's our expert in physical activity. She also makes a really good point that weight loss isn't the only outcome. The type of calories are important for other outcomes. So, I mean, I think, weight loss is important, especially if you're overweight or obese, for long-term health and risk of chronic or diet-related chronic diseases like heart disease that are really prevalent in Arkansas. But also, like right now, one thing that Weight Watchers focuses on, and if anyone has ever heard the advertisements for Noom, the other weight loss sort of app group going around, at first they ask you why you're there, and most people are always there for weight loss. But then after a few weeks, when you don't lose 600 pounds, in like 3 days, they ask you to start thinking, well, what are you really here for? Do you want to feel better? Do you want to move better? Do you want to sleep better? And when you take this holistic approach, that's when people usually start to be happier, healthier, and like focused on weight loss. But it's not just getting skinny. It's about having sort of a whole balanced lifestyle. And I think if we do get funding to continue Project DFEND after this week, I think we'll bring in some more experts to start talking about like sleep, mindfulness, and other components that give people like healthy lifestyles, especially as we social distance. And then I think what next week is slated to be, I think, one of our last talks, but we hope to keep going at least through the summer and fall. Fingers crossed for the funding fairies to help us keep generating all this material. But we want to thank you all for your time. And next week, we're going to be talking about, I think, like 4th of July. So like food safety and healthy recipes, because it's only about 2 weeks away. Does anyone else have any questions? And we will get to the vegetarian and vegan recipes and complete proteins and things like that. But we hope to carry this out to talk more about, lifestyle and not just about fad diets. And if anyone wants to hear the full fad diet lecture one day, I'm happy to create a separate Zoom call and sort of go through that and open it up to agents. So anything else? Thanks everyone for calling in and keeping us, supporting us every week. We appreciate it. Okay. Well, this has been our almost 40 minutes. And we appreciate your time and have a nice weekend. Thank you.